All right, here for part 4 of the tier list of cartoon heroes. I think we're up to M, if I'm not mistaken. I still need to go through and re-rank these at the end. There's also some that I've noticed are getting skipped just like last time, where I think the pictures just didn't upload, and so I will try to get those fixed before the end and then get them added. But we will start with the M's. All right. Mace Windu. Mace Windu is from Clone Wars. There were 2 different Clone Wars mentioned in another video before. Maybe not this one, this heroes list, but there was like a short one done by the guy that did like Dexter's Laboratory. So you see the animation's different. And then there was the Clone Wars where I've got most of the characters. I liked Mace Windu's character from like the original one, the kind of Dexter's Lab looking one. So I brought his picture in. He's just like hardcore, and this is coming after he was in like the prequels, and he was kind of lame. I mean, whichever prequel it was in, because I think it was in the middle of them making them. But he was pretty cool in it. I enjoyed him. I'll have him in Cool Enough. He was fine in the other Clone Wars. I'm sure I'm forgetting some of the stuff, but he was a good character. Let's have him just around. Let's have him around Iron Fist and Power Man here. Okay. Man, another She-Ra here. I think this is Madame Raz. I think it's Madame something, but it's Madame Raz, I believe. So she's the Orko or whatever for She-Ra. I believe the magician and does stuff, kind of screws things up sometimes. She's not my favorite. I'm just gonna have her down with the guy. I can't remember his name, and I didn't look it up either. I should have. I just keep hoping it's gonna pop into my head, and it won't get there. But yeah, I was never a fan of like the side characters too much within She-Ra, so she's kind of one of them. Now, if you love the show, she's probably funny and all that, which is totally fine. All right, we've got Maggie. So Maggie's another baby. I know I've got some babies here and that don't really care about, but I like Maggie. Maggie was actually one of the central figures in the whole arc of Mr. Burns getting shot. So she is funny. She's also funny. I always liked in the beginning where she looks like she's driving the car and honking the horn. But she's cute. She never talks. Doesn't really grow up. Again, I watched first, I don't know how many seasons. Not all that much of The Simpsons comparatively to what like season 80 they're on now or whatever. But Maggie's cool enough. I like Maggie. I like her more than Lisa a little bit, not a ton. But I'll have her maybe around Bam Bam here. Okay, this is Lifeline. Lifeline from G.I. Joe. Another one of those G.I. Joe characters. They're cool enough. I like that there's a lot of them and they interact well. But unto themselves, I'm never like blown away for the most part, unless they're main characters. I'd have him in Cool Enough as well. Let's see where we've got some of these dudes. I don't have him as high as some of these others. Let's have him down by like Doug. Oh no, and I'm sorry, that's not Lifeline. I'm in the M's. I misspoke his name. It's Mainframe. Mainframe is the guy who does computers and stuff. Lifeline we had earlier when he was doing the medic stuff. But yeah, Mainframe was kind of a side character to computers. All right, Mallory Archer. So Mallory is from Archer. She is Archer's mother. It is a funny dynamic because Archer is such a kind of playboy, thinks he's hot crap, but she totally owns him and puts him in his place, which I love. So Mallory's great. I think I've got Mallory in the awesome category. She's like always got a drink in her hand and leads the team. But yeah, she's fun. I'll have her kind of at the bottom right now of the awesome category. All right, Manny Faces. Tricky one for me because I always liked his toy. You like click the head or something, or like make his head spin to different faces. He has like 3 faces or something. I don't remember what he had in the show. He might have had more. But he was a cool character. I liked Many Faces. He was an interesting kind of take on a character, I'm going to put him in the barely not awesome category. He's one of those side people I actually do like or like to see on the show. Man at Arms. Okay, Man at Arms is more of the right hand man of He-Man. He's the one I remember the most from the show, other than like He-Man. And so I'd have him. Let's have him up by kind of Hunk and Jane Jetson for now. Barely not awesome. He's one. If I watch T-Man a little bit more, I might be like, oh yeah, I really like him. But it's been a while since I've seen several episodes. All right, Marge Simpson. Marge, classic character, always had the giant blue hair, but she had a great personality. It wasn't just her look. She had a really unique voice. Was always a really good mom. Had to deal with Homer again, which is like not an easy thing to do. But I'll have her up with the moms, and I mean, if I'm watching a show, I'd probably like Beth a little bit more. But I mean, Marge is super classic. All right, this is Maria Hill. So she's in the like Shield world within Marvel. She's on one of the movies or a couple of movies, I think. But this is Maria Hill from the Earth's Mightiest Heroes show. I liked her character. I thought she was good. She was it was a good take on her, and she actually had stuff to do in the show. Kind of reminds me of some of these folks. I won't put her above like a Jubilee or anything, but maybe up in there. All right. I knew I was going to forget her name and try to get back here. I want to say it's like Marguerite. Flavio was the husband, and it's like Marguerite or something, but she is the other hippo from Animaniacs, the lovey-dovey couple. So there's Flavio, and I like Flavio a little bit better. He's, I don't know, just has his little bird with him sometimes and everything, but she's fun too. They're cool enough on the show. All right, Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter is always the stoic kind of leader person within the Justice League. It's not Justice League Unlimited, probably in some other stuff. But he's a good character. I always liked him. He's afraid of fire. Has to do with where he comes from on Mars and like his experience. But I like Martian Manhunter a lot. I would have Martian Manhunter up here maybe with like Green Lantern in the awesome category. Shapeshifter, changes into stuff, so he's cool. All right. Oh, he's got an M on his chest. Can never remember his name either. Wendy is the sister, and then there's like Mark or something like that. Oh man, I can't remember. But anyway, so he is the dude from Super Friends. It's he and Wendy and Wonder Dog, and they're just like, they did this a lot with like those 60s shows where you had two kids and a dog with whoever else. So you got superheroes with like these two kids and a dog who just hang around. The Hall of Justice, I didn't really care about them. I'm going to put him kind of down here. I don't know that it was trash. I get what they were doing, but it's like, yeah, I didn't care if he was on the show. Master Roshi. Master Roshi is from Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z. He is the initial trainer of Goku and trains throughout. He is a perverted old man who is also a great fighter and really comes back within Dragon Ball Super pretty hardcore. So that was good to see. Master Roshi's really great. I'm going to have Master Roshi up here with some of these folks for now, and we'll see where he goes. But yeah, I like Master Roshi a lot. He's a good add to that show and a nice comedic relief while also doing his thing when he needs to, which is good. Oh man, Captain Planet. Man, what was his name? I think. Well, anyway, it's the dude that has heart. Heart is the lamest power on Dragon or on Dragon Ball Z, on Captain Planet. I never understood like what the intent really was. It controls animals, I think, and like lets them uh, know what he wants them to do. But I don't really know like how it fits with all the other elemental stuff. So, um, I kind of have him in the don't really care about. He was like the one where I'm like, yeah, we'll put him there for now. His name will probably pop into my head once I think of like Captain Planet more, but he is my least favorite. Not the spoiler alert, but spoiler alert on the show. All right, Max. Max is from Batman Beyond. So she's the best friend techie person, I think, who does help uh, defeat the the bad guys sometimes, at least. Just the weaker ones, probably. But I think she feels like she got kidnapped one episode. Can't remember. Max is fine. I'd have her in the cool enough category. She had a good, distinct personality and added to the show. Um, More important than maybe some of these, I'll have her down by fire. Um, oh, you know what? Just popped in my head. I think I know what this guy's name is. I think it's Cowl. Is it Cowl? Can't remember if he was in the case, but for some reason I just Madame Raz got in my head and I remember Cowl. All right, long shot. Long shot is somebody we already did. Okay, this is Max. Oh man, Max something. Max. They always have these. It's Centurions, and he's the ground guy. So they always have like names that are ground related or cloud, like Ace McCloud. Um, Max. It's like Max Ground something. I don't know. Anyway, so this dude is the leader, kind of. I remember him being the like mature one, whereas Ace was like the cocky one. He had some cool stuff. Sometimes it's hard to do when you've got like cool things flying. You know, you got that guy, and then you got a dude in the water who's like doing cool stuff. It's like, oh, what's the ground guy got? But he had some cool stuff. That was a cool show to see them like they call their gear down and it'd be different, and it was always like put together like Legos or something. But I liked him. I thought he was fine on the show. I probably liked him more than Ace, who I know I moved down a little bit. I can't remember exactly where I moved him. But let's see. Max was pretty solid. I'll have him. Let's split up these X-Men. I'm going to have him right above Iceman. Okay. Meatwad. Meatwad is in Aqua Teen. Funny, gullible, dumb, but you know sometimes gets his. But he, gets taken advantage of. It seems. I didn't watch the show enough to like really know them well. Um, mm, I don't know if I could say he was awesome just from not watching it enough, but he's probably kind of close. So I'm gonna put him. Let's just have him. When we got Frylock there, they're close. They're close. We'll figure it out. Just totally different personalities, which I like. All right, Meg. Meg is in Family Guy. It's tough because she is supposed to be the butt of the jokes and disregarded. The family always talks about how like nobody likes her, just nonstop. So you get that in your head as well. But yeah, she's still not even somebody I really care to see on the show. Kind of like Chris. So I'll just have her down there as well. I think Mila Kunis does her voice. Does a good job. The character's fun on the show within context. Mega Man. So we had Dr. Light earlier. This is Mega Man from the cartoon, and they did a good job. I reference when I think of Mega Man a lot from the cartoon, even though I played some of the games, like the first six games. So I like this Mega Man. And I'll have Mega Man up in my Barely Not Awesome category. And let's just have him kind of around Dennis the Menace. Um, He-Man, Mecha Neck. Dude that has a neck that extends. He can like see things and looks up high. He was one. It's fine. He's fine. He's cool enough. I kind of like Fisto here. There's like a it's Mecha Neck, but then that was about it. I didn't really care about his backstory or anything. I guess he's just like, oh, it's a Mecha Neck. He's got a cool neck. I don't think I had his toy either. I felt like one where I was like, oh, that'd be fun to have, but I didn't have it. I'm assuming it allowed his neck to go up. All right. She-Ra, following it up with She-Ra Mermista? Mermaid? And I'm probably missing some of these She-Ra characters because there were a lot. It felt like where they were in it for an episode or something, and they're all like partners and friends from around the world. But Mermista was fine. She was not one that I would say I didn't like. She had like a siren call, I remember. It was 10-2, right, when they have the mermaid look. But I'd have her as cool enough. I thought she was fun. So I'll put her toward the bottom of the cool enough category. Metamorpho. Metamorpho is a Justice League character. I feel like started as a villain, but it was more the like dude freaked out when he had an accident and didn't know what to do, and so had to figure it out. But he was also in like Batman Brave and the Bold, where he was just more of a hero, I think. But he was a fun character. I liked how he came together and his powers and stuff. I'll have him maybe just around and above Shazam in the cool enough. Michelangelo. And you notice, like I said, there's some pictures missing. I think like Donatello we didn't have yet, so I'm going to try to get those pictures in. But Michelangelo is probably the second turtle that we've had. He's a partier. He's the cowabunga dude. He is always fun. Loves the pizza. They all love pizza, but he's the one I always associate with that most. Nunchucks, really cool looking. I remember going to a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle live like concert thing as a kid, and the toy I got was the nunchucks, and I wish I still had them because they were fun. Plastic, obviously, but they were fun. Okay, Michelangelo is kind of up here as well. I don't like him as much as Leonardo. I'm gonna have him like by Bumblebee, and we'll figure that out. But I do like the turtles. All right, this is Mikasa. Mikasa, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I can never remember. I haven't seen Attack on Titan in a little bit, but Mikasa is the girl who is like best friends, I think, with Eren, with him from the start. Has like a red scarf around to remind her of something, I think the tragedy and everything. Anyway, she's a complete badass. She is like one of the best characters on that show for sure. I'm gonna have her up. Let's have her up by Chi Chi for now, but I'll have her in the awesome category to start. She's great. Okay, Mikey. I think it's Mikey. I was gonna say Mike, but I think it's Mikey from Recess. He's the kind of bigger dude within the group, and but still kind-hearted and fun. I liked him. I liked when Mikey was on. He's not like a forgettable character to me. Here's some of the other ones, and I like Mikey probably a little bit more, and I'm going to move him up a bit. All right, Mindy. Mindy is the foil of Buttons, the dog that we talked about in an earlier video, where Mindy gets out of the harness and runs around and gets into all sorts of trouble and avoids all of the trouble, and Buttons has to like do everything he can for Mindy not to get destroyed. So Mindy was not my favorite because I would get mad. It's like, what are you doing? But I didn't like hate when Mindy was on. I'll have Well, the one thing I forgot about for a second that's going to move Mindy up to the cool enough category. Every time the mom would come out, which you wouldn't even see the mom's face or anything, Mindy would not call her mom. He'd call her nice lady. And she'd get mad. She'd be like, it's mom. It's like, hello, nice lady. So cool enough. All right, Minerva. Minerva Minx is the like Pepe Le Pew type character within Animaniacs. She's always fawning over some guy or guys. It's like a little side skit that, if I recall. She's fine. I don't remember a ton of the skits. It was just kind of a like off to the side thing. I'll have her. I probably liked her a little bit more than Katie Kaboom, so we'll put her right there. All right, this is Miss Martian. We just had Martian Manhunter. This is the Young Justice version. Again, with those types of shows where it's like, oh, this is a younger version of somebody, it can get a little repetitive. But she has her own personality. Like, she's totally fine and good and enjoyable in the show. So I'm going to have her up in the Barely Not Awesome category. Probably maybe by uh, Daphne for now. Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle's from Justice League. He's from the planet that, and I can't remember that planet's name either, but there's like Apocalypse where Darkseid lives, and then there's this other planet of good people. Mr. Miracle's there. I think he specializes in escaping stuff. I believe he gets kidnapped by Granny Goodness at some point. But he's a fun character. Probably just cool enough. I don't think he had enough exposure in the show to like move up too much more. Personality wise, I'd probably have him below Dr. Fate. Mr. Popo. Mr. Popo is just the right hand man of Kame and then Dende, so the Earth's guardian or whatever that person is called. I watched Dragon Ball Z before I watched Dragon Ball, and so when you watch Dragon Ball Z, you're like, "Oh, this guy's just a little off to the side, fun guy." But when you watch Dragon Ball, I think it was in Dragon Ball, he is more powerful. At least at the time, everything's like scaling up as you go through the show. But he's like impossible to beat for a bit for Goku, which is really cool, and just a good like teacher through that process. So I like Mr. Popo. I'll have Mr. Popo in the Barely Not Awesome category. I enjoy him. Let's have him around launch. Sounds good. Mockingbird. Mockingbird is Earth's Mightiest Heroes, so an Avenger. She's not in it a ton. She is enjoyable when she's in it. I like some of the episodes she was in. I'll have her in the cool enough category. Kind of like Big Barda, probably. Oh, Moira McTaggart. Irish from the X-Men cartoon, X-Men 97 as well. I didn't like Moira that much. I just didn't care when she was on the screen, and it's like, oh, here we go, Moira episode. So I'm just going to throw her down in the don't really care about. We'll figure out how much I don't really care about her, but towards the middle. Monkey Man. Monkey Man was only in a couple of episodes of Samurai Jack, and I feel like Samurai Jack's one that I'm actually missing his picture, so I got to figure that one out. But Monkey Man is the one who is a dude that lives with a bunch of apes, and they jump really high, and so he has to teach Samurai Jack how to jump good. That's what he always says, jump good. So they throw like giant stones on his back and train him and everything. But Monkey Man is good, and then he ends up training with Samurai Jack to fight back on against the robots and everything that are attacking his tribe, or the guys that are coming and attacking his tribe. I can't remember who it is. But I've got Monkey Man pretty high. He's in my Barely Not Awesome category. Let's just throw him between Bunsen and Beaker so we separate them a little bit. Monterey Jack. Monterey Jack is I feel like he's the pilot. He's got the pilot glasses within Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. Bigger dude compared to the others. Always liked Monterey Jack when he was in the show. I'm going to have him in the Barely Not Awesome category as well. Maybe just above Fozzie Bear for now. Morph, X-Men 97. If you just told me Morph from X-Men, might not be a popular opinion, but he was not my favorite. He his whole shtick was he would change, which was cool, but he was a jokester and would just always make jokes. It's like, okay, but he got sacrificed. Like the first episode, he was cannon fodder, and then he came back later. He was brainwashed and some other stuff, but he was not my favorite. X-Men 97, he comes back and he actually fights and changes and looks cool. And I'm like, oh, that version of Morph to me is far better than the version that they had in the original. I think he was a made up character. There was a character named Changeling with the same name that they just made Morph. So a little like Jubilee, where it was like, oh, okay, let's change it around. I'd have Morph. Oh, let's put him by Corsair and maybe a little bit above Corsair for now. He might move up as I think about other things, but if I just had the 97 version, I'd probably move him up, but considering everything, I didn't like him all that much in the original. All right, Morty, Rick and Morty. So you got Rick, the grandpa, Morty, the kid, always goes on adventures, has trying to get his girlfriend, trying to travel through space. There's a million of him or infinity of him at the nexus of whatever their world is. He's a great compliment to Rick. It's the whole Back to the Future thing, like Marty and Doc. But Morty's fun unto himself. I like Morty. I'm gonna have him in the barely not awesome category, or I'm sorry, in the awesome category, but just above barely not awesome for now. All right, Mr. Fantastic said the same thing with Human Torch and Invisible Woman. I do not remember if there's other shows, but there's a couple of cartoons that I remember Mr. Fantastic in, and I like Reed Richards. Cool power to stretch, makes inventions, does that kind of thing. But he wasn't like the most interesting in the world to me, so I'm going to put him with his Fantastic Four counterparts, maybe just below Johnny Storm, Human Torch. All right, Mr. Hanky, the Christmas Pooh. He loves me and I love you. His famous song. So hard to explain sometimes when you have a character who doesn't exist and then all of a sudden like comes into the reality of pop culture, right? Because like now, if people know South Park, they're like, oh, I know Mr. Hanky. I've heard of Mr. Hanky. But when he first appeared, you're like, it was the craziest thing in the world. It's just like, okay, this poop that becomes a character and it's like Christmas spirit. And then he's got an awesome family with his drunk wife and kids. Mr. Hanky's great. He had a nice little. He always sings, does little songs. I'm gonna have Mr. Hanky in the awesome category as well. Whoops, too far. Bridge too far. All right. Why is he here? Oh, I guess it's like Mr. Kim, but I think it's Lou Kim. There was like one episode toward the end where I can't remember. It's like he wasn't Chinese or something. I don't remember that one that much. But anyway, in South Park, he's the guy that has the Chinese restaurant. He's a side character, but he's got a couple of episodes where he really part of it centers around him. My favorite was when the kids were getting kidnapped, or there was fear of them being kidnapped, and so they built a wall, or wanted a wall around South Park, and so they asked him to do it, and you're like, well, that's racist and awful, and then he ends up building it and tries to defend the town from Mongolians who thinks of that stuff, but Luke Kim is fun, and he's fun in his voice and how he speaks and runs the city walk, which is sometimes mispronounced by him. I'll have Mr. Kim let's have him by Dale. The Barely Not Awesome. All right. So this is Miss Marvel. I mean, I know the character. This is Mr. Skullhead or something like that. Mr. Skull something. He is from Animaniacs in a very short skit, but I always thought was funny. That's called "Good Idea, Bad Idea," and it's like, "Good idea, you do this. Bad idea," and then it was him getting like hurt or dismembered or whatever. So he didn't have much personality or anything, but he was still like a funny character to have on the show. I'll have him in Cool Enough. Let's have him by Byron for now. All right. Okay, so this is Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel. People would know her as Captain Marvel now, but um, Carol Danvers from Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and she was good. I liked Carol Danvers in that version far more than the movies. She's good on the show. Not, I mean, she's powerful, but I don't know that she was like overpowered on the show. Um, I'd have her maybe by Huntress. It's a good comp and cool enough. Okay, we are to the ends. There's not many ends. Wow, it's kind of weird. It's like I'm missing a bunch of ends, but maybe I'm not. This is, I think, Nam. So Nam is in Dragon Ball, and he's like a fighter in the tournament. He's from a village. I remember, I believe his village was suffering a drought at some point, and then he gets attacked by Garen or one of the other tournament people. But or maybe it was one of the Piccolo group. I can't remember. But Nam was cool. I liked Nam. I thought he was fun. I'm gonna have him in the cool enough category. Maybe up by like Apache Chief to start. Nick Fury. Nick Fury is Shield, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Nick Fury is also in like Spider-Man a little bit, the animated show. Probably some other ones that I maybe didn't see, but this is the Nick Fury I like, where you got he's the white one, the eye patch. It's just how he was originally written. I've said that before. Nothing wrong with the Samuel L. Jackson one. It's just like this. This is the version I grew up with. There was a great, and I maybe mentioned this too. There was a great arcade game with he and the Punisher together that I remember, and this was the look he had, the blue look. Nick Fury, I like. I'm gonna have him in the Barely Not Awesome. He's kind of like Forge. I like him a little bit more in Forge. Nightcrawler. Again, X-Men 97. He is like a monk, I think, in X-Men, and has a couple of episodes where he's important, but then he becomes awesome again in 97, where he actually gets to fight legit with his swords and with Wolverine, which was a nice use of the character because you didn't really get to see that before. That was one thing they did really well in X-Men 97 is they made some of the characters get to like be more violent or legit that you didn't get to see so much in the original. So I'll have Nightcrawler higher than Iceman Colossus. They had a little bit more to do and then came back in Angel as well. I'll have him in the Barely Not Awesome category. I like his character a lot. Let's have him up. Put him by John. Okay, I'm going to get the names wrong here. This is Nightwing is the character and what he's listed under, and I always get the Robins mixed up, but this is the original Robin, Dick Grayson, is that right? Who was Robin in like Batman originally, and then became Nightwing, and probably in Young Justice and some other things too. But I always like this version of him as Robin, and I'm going to have him as Barely Not Awesome as well. I'll have him. Some of these, I always say it, but got to move around, so don't be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you have him above so and so. It'll change. All right, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Clone Wars. Did a pretty good job. Kind of looks like Ewan McGregor, right? He is great in that show. That show, again, for the millionth time, does a much better job with those characters than the characters in the movies. Though, I will say Obi-Wan was probably one of the better done characters in the movies. I liked Obi-Wan a lot in that show. He was a good friend, mentor, general in the show. I've got him kind of up with these guys. I liked him a little bit more than Anakin as well. Odie, Garfield and Friends. Odie doesn't speak. He just barks and he like shows expressions with his face. He might use paw gestures too. I don't remember, but he's great with Garfield, like a good juxtaposition with Garfield, and they appreciate and love each other. And Odie's one of those dogs. It's like regardless of what Garfield does, he's gonna love him and be around him. Uh, I remember I saw one episode where they were like snowed in at a cabin. John had left to try to go get food and got snowed out, like he couldn't get back. So Garfield's starving to death. He hadn't eaten for like 30 minutes or an hour or something. And Odie's sitting at the back door, like scratching to try to get out, And Garfield like was like, no, dude, we're snowed in, we're snowed in. And finally Odie breaks out and there's like a lasagna place right next door that closed as soon as they got out. So Odie knew what was going on. And Garfield was like, you idiot, why didn't you tell me? He couldn't. So anyway, Odie's cool. I like Odie. He couldn't talk, so I'm not gonna move him too high, but I'd have him higher than some of these guys. Like, let's just put him a little bit higher than Battle Cat. Okay, this is Oolong. Oolong from Dragon Ball. Oolong is always a little kind of perverted on the show. He's a shapeshifter, I think. Just a side dude that gets forced into doing stuff to help the group. It's not always his first intention. He's trying to look out for himself more than anything. He's cool enough. He wasn't like one of my favorite characters on the show, so I'll have him toward the bottom. Sarcastic and kind of like pain in the butt sometimes. All right, Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime is from Transformers. He is a like quintessential leader. Just gets them to Earth at first, and then has to help them. They get to the movie, which is like a middle part of the show, really, the TV show, and dies. Spoiler alert. But comes back later because ratings were down. But anyway, Optimus Prime was awesome. He's like a quintessential goat for me. Uh, Great voice actor as well that does his voice and has done it for all the movies as well. So they had a good voice cast for the whole thing, and Optimus Prime is certainly one of them. All right, Optimus Primal, who is Beast Wars. He is not Optimus Prime. It is a different character. I cannot remember why their names are close. I can't remember if it's like, an homage to the original Optimus Prime, so I'm going to call myself that. Anyway, there was overlap. They did eventually meet and see each other, I think, in Beast Machines. But Optimus Primal, like Beast Wars characters, I didn't love too much. It was a fine show, but he's fine. I'd have him in the cool enough category, a little higher. He was a good leader and everything in the show. Let's have him. Maybe I think so. That's fine. Orion. Orion is Justice League. He is, again, the planet where Mr. Miracle and Highfather and folks are from, Big Barda. He's more of the leader. I don't remember if he is Darkseid's kid or not. It feels like maybe he is, that like left the planet or got taken and raised on the other planet. But he's cool enough. He's fun. He's a little like Big Barda to me, and I probably like Big Barda a little bit more. She's got a little more personality to her. Orko. Orko is the He-Man magician like we had earlier with Madame Raz. But unlike Madame Raz, I like Orko. I like his goofiness in the show. I enjoy him when he's on the screen, so I'm going to have him up in the Barely Not Awesome category with Manny Faces. Orson Pig, I think was his name. It's close to that. It's either Orton or Orson, but I think it's Orson. Garfield and Friends. He's kind of the ringleader of the animal farm. I remember him singing sometimes. Teaching lessons. This might have been that same episode of Garfield and Friends I was talking about where Garfield was like in the snow. But I remember one where he told like one of the people something like, oh, you're going to do this. And the other person like said, oh, but it's a monster. And they kept telling, it was like playing telephone, but they would change the story every time. So it ended up where like, oh, there's this monster on the farm. And all he had said was like, there was something that happened in a story. So it was the lesson of like, don't gossip and change things to make them into something they're not. But he sang at the end. That was one of the first memories I have of him doing that. So, or he was cool enough. He wasn't my favorite. I'm gonna have him. Uh, I won't put him next to Oolong just because he's a pig. We'll have him just below Jan. All right, who's this guy? Well, I have a shirt of this guy. A lot of people probably haven't seen this guy or know who he is. He's not really like a hero. He's only in an 8-minute cartoon. But his name is Al Jolson, just like Al Jolson, but Owl. And the whole premise, go watch it if you haven't seen it. This cartoon was made in like the 30s. But anyway, it's like two parents, owls, that have four kids maybe, that are eggs, and they're both like really classically trained musicians. So they love classical music and all this. The first kid comes out, he's playing the violin. The second one comes out, and he's like an opera singer. Finally, they get to Al Jolson, and he comes out and he starts singing his song. It's like, I want to sing about the moon and a June and a spring, and he just keeps going, and it drives the parents insane. So anyway, he leaves the house, and they lose him, and then they figure out they need to let him be who he is. But he goes and actually competes in this competition and stuff, and he's just a great personality and a character. It's like the first one from being the oldest cartoon of a character like really standing out to me. So I'm gonna have him in the awesome category. I like Al Jolson a lot, and it's a fun character. Let's have him up by Krillin. It's always crazy, these comparisons, right? It's like, oh, you got this dude from like a 30s cartoon and a dude from an anime in the 2020s. Almost 100 years later. Ox King. Ox King is the father of Chi-Chi, who is the mother of Gohan and Goten and the wife of Goku. Ox King is this really intimidating looking dude in Dragon Ball, and he ends up just becoming a big, lovable guy within Dragon Ball Z. He doesn't have a ton to do. You kind of I wish he would have fought a little bit more, but he's cool enough. I enjoy the character when he's on the screen. I'll have him. I like him more than some of these. Let's have him up by the God Pigeon. Padme Amidala, Anakin's wife from Clone Wars. I can't remember I don't know if they were married or not in the show. But they were certainly very close, so I would think so. Anyway, she is looks like Natalie Portman did a pretty good job, but she's good in the show. She, again, with those characters, they did a better job of giving them stuff to do and it making sense. And I would have her, let's have her in the barely not awesome category as well. Maybe around Nightwing. All right, Pam Poovey from Archer. Pam is I think she's the psychiatrist of the group, and she's like terrible at it because she's got her own personality problems and issues and stuff. But she's funny when she's on the show, and she's like really tough and can beat up anybody, and is funny when she's at her best. So I'm gonna have Pam. Let's have Pam up by like American Made here. All right. Panthro from Thundercats. He's the reliable, strong, nunchuck wielding dude who builds the Thunder Tank and engineers stuff. Probably like the most dependable at the beginning for Lion-O as well, because he's young. I said that, and so Panthro kind of teaches him lessons as he goes along. I would have Panthro in the awesome category. Let's have him around like Gambit, Bishop, those folks. All right, let's see if I bit off more than I can chew. Okay, we got time, and where do our P's go to? Well, we got a ways to go, all the way down to Punisher, but we can do it. All right, Papa Smurf. Papa Smurf is the leader of the Smurfs, and Papa Smurf is the most memorable Smurf for sure. Was always reliable, made good decisions. Had to fight Gargamel. I'd have him in the awesome category. Let's just put him around the Voltron guys, Keith and Lance. Patrick Starfish, the dopey best friend of SpongeBob SquarePants. Patrick is fun and funny on the show and in my barely not awesome category. Let's have him around Monkey Man and Beaker. Professor Peabody. But Peabody's probably what it goes by here because Peach is next. So Peabody and Sherman, we'll have Sherman later, hopefully, were the time traveling duo from Bullwinkle, Rocky and Bullwinkle. I always liked this pair and the adventures they would go on because they'd go in the past and you'd actually, it's funny and you'd learn stuff. But he's the smart one, he's the dog, and then the little boy is the like naive one that's learning stuff. But Peabody's fun. I like Mr. Peabody, Professor Peabody. I'll have him in the barely not awesome category, kind of by Dr. Light. All right, Peach from Mario and Luigi. I don't remember Peach all that much in that show. Now, I don't remember the show either as much as I should because I liked Mario a lot. I did watch it, and I remember the real part of it and then the cartoon part of it. Maybe that's why I don't remember the cartoon part as much because I remember the real part more. But Peach is fine. It's not. I'd have her lower. I didn't really watch the show for her. Right, if she was on, it was more like a plot device for Mario and Luigi. Okay, Pebbles, Flintstone. This is the older version of Pebbles. There's always the baby version from the original Flintstones, and this is that older version. I had Bam Bam as his baby version, but he grew up too at that age. Pebbles is fine. She was cool enough when she was on the show. I don't know that I really paid all that much attention to her, so let's kind of do what we just did with Peach. Peggy Hill. Peggy Hill. They made some great mom characters in these like 90s and even 2000 shows that are distinct. Like they have similar personality traits, but Peggy is a substitute teacher. She has to deal with Hank being stubborn and dumb sometimes about stuff, and obviously Bobby Hill and Luann. But she's very strong-willed, keeps the family together and all that. So Peggy Hill is good. All right, Penny. Penny is Inspector Gadget. I mentioned Brain earlier, and then we had Inspector Gadget. So Penny and Brain really keep Inspector Gadget from totally mucking things up. I would say she's my favorite, but she's fine. She's kind of like this Gosselin, but a little bit better. So I'm going to put her, let's just put her right there for now. Pepe Le Pew, the stinky skunk who is a romantic, tries to fall in love with Bugs Bunny, I think, when Bugs Bunny is painted black and white, if I remember. But yeah, there's always a girl too that he's going after, and I can't remember what her name is. But I liked Pepe Le Pew. He's not my favorite Looney Tunes character, but he's good. Let's have him up between the Jetsons. All right. Oh man, this is from She-Ra, and it is what's her name? So it's not Pesto's the next guy, and then it's like they always have these names of like I have a power and this is what I do or where I come from, like Mermista and all that. So well, we'll think of it. But anyway, I don't remember her all that much, except maybe she was the one who was the the smells Perfuma, I think is it. And she might have been the one with like flowers. And if she was, I liked her more. And maybe I'll mistake her for somebody else, but There was one who had flowers that like went to that Hordak kidnapped, and she ended up like wanting to stay, but she was annoying as heck to him, so he like gave up everything for She-Ra to take her back. I don't remember if that's this one or not, but if it is, I like her more uh, than some of the others. So I'll have her in the cool enough characters. Let's have her around a little less than Gem, maybe. Okay. Next we have Pesto. Pesto the pigeon. He's the sarcastic, mean, uh, gets angry easily god pigeon from the Animaniacs. He's funny. I liked Pesto. He's my favorite probably of the pigeons, so I'll try to make sure I account for that in the ratings at the end. And I'd have Pesto. Let's have Pesto down by Patrick for now. Okay. Peter Griffin, Peter from Family Guy. The next iteration of Homer Simpson, but certainly came into his own. Peter is a classic. He's a goat as well. Um, Lots of great Peter centric comedy within the show. He's not just like a dad that everything revolves around. So he is a very good character to be supreme. So we'll call him a goat. Okay, we have another. Oh, this is Peter Potamus. Peter Potamus from Hanna-Barbera. It travels, if I remember right, like in a balloon. Um, Probably on Laugh Olympics and stuff, but I didn't really care about Peter Potamus. Uh, I'll have Peter Potamus down in this group of don't really care about. Okay, Piccolo. Piccolo was the spawn of evil Piccolo, King Piccolo, whatever, from Dragon Ball. This Piccolo was actually a villain at the end of Dragon Ball in the last tournament, and then comes back in Dragon Ball Z and becomes a mentor to Gohan, so the son of Goku, when Goku is dead or gone. And he's a great character. Piccolo's awesome. He gets frustrating for me because he's like always just not able to be as powerful as the most powerful guys, but he's always kind of keeping it like just below him and never really gets to like ultimately be the best. I wish he would get to the best, but I think Piccolo's awesome. He's one of my favorites on the show. I'm gonna have him up by Goku. He's a Namek. He combines with Kame at some point. Another guy named Nail gets stronger and then trains to get stronger. He always wore like weighted clothes, and then he'd take his weighted clothes off and be able to kick guys' butts that thought he was not as powerful. All right, Pidge. Pidge from Voltron Force. Defender of the Universe, maybe what the show was actually called fully. But Pidge is the little like dorky kid. Green, I think he is the Green Lion, if I'm not mistaken. But Pidge and Hunk are the best friends. So I had Hunk somewhere up here. I don't remember where I had Hunk exactly. There he is. Pidge is in my Barely Not Awesome too. He's the smart one. He figures kind of stuff out. I don't have him as high as some of the others like Lance and Keith, but I liked Pidge too. All right, Miss Piggy. Miss Piggy's a classic. She is always obsessed with Kermie. Miss Piggy is fun on Muppet Babies, as always. She's the damsel, or like Princess Leia when you do Star Wars. I believe she was Princess Leia. I could be wrong, but I'll have her up with Fozzie and Gonzo. I'd probably like her a little bit more than Gonzo. The Pink Panther, made after a movie where it wasn't actually like focused on this Pink Panther. It's an Inspector Clouseau. But they took that Pink Panther and turned him that cartoon into a cartoon show, and he's got a couple shows. The music was always great. You had Inspector Clouseau chasing him in there. You can kind of see in here. Sometimes he would run into like trouble and get tarred and feathered or whatever. But Pink Panther was fun. I'd have him in the Barely Not Awesome category. He didn't like talk a ton. at all, I don't think, but he was still a good character. So I'm going to have him maybe by Fred. Pinky, we had the brain. So Pinky is the not so intelligent other mouse who does a lot of the legwork for Brain and tries to help him take over the world. I will always give him credit for the episode where Brain fails and finally becomes so discouraged that he gives up, and Pinky for Christmas gets him a little keychain with a globe on it, which is giving him, the world. So Brain usually treats him like crap, but Pinky, he ultimately cares about Pinky and loves Pinky. So Pinky, I would have in my awesome category too, probably around the Mr. Hanky. Plastic Man. Plastic Man is like a thief who turns, he's a hero, but he was a thief. This is the Justice League version, I think, but he's on Brave and the Bold, and he's really funny on Brave and the Bold because he tries to like sneak money away and stuff, even when he's doing good deeds. I liked Plastic Man's personality. I thought he was fun in the shows. Like Elongated Man, and it's like they have duplicate powers, and you're like, well, why would you have both of them? But they actually partner up at one point. It's pretty fun. So I'll have him. Let's have him up by Etrigan. Boomhauer. Plo Koon, Jedi, Clone Wars. A little more serious. You see him flying starships and stuff around. Fun enough character. Probably got him above Kit here, and Isla. Yeah, that's not all that bad. Let's have him around Dr. Fate. Plucky Duck. Plucky Duck is Tiny Toons, and Plucky Duck is the Daffy Duck kid version. He was good in the show. I always liked him. He's one of my guys that it's like, okay, Plucky's on, and he's having to deal with all these people. He's pretty fun. So we have Buster and Babs. I like Plucky a little bit more for now, because I could talk myself into Buster being. I will. I'm going to talk myself into Buster being right there. Popeye mini iterations. Had the old Popeye, new Popeyes. Eats a spinach, gets strong. Good moral of the story: eat your spinach. I guess it applies, but had to save olive oil. Popeye was never my favorite, but he's barely not awesome. Like I like the character. I'll have him toward the bottom here. Had his pipe. He's memorable. Porky Pig. That's all, folks. Couldn't get away with Porky these days, I'm sure, but has kind of a stutter that sounds like he's going to say something, and then it changes at the very end when he gets his thought out. And Porky is fun. He does a good job singing songs like Blue Christmas. And I'll have him in the awesome category as well. Let's just put him toward the bottom of awesome for now. Powdered Toast Man. I put Powdered Toast Man in here. I was doing Ren and Stimpy, and I was like, I remember Powdered Toast Man a good bit. Like, flew backwards. It's like, what is this? These people that write this, I don't know what drugs they're on or whatever, but very creative. And Powdered Toast Man was like, Powdered Toast Man, I think is what they'd say. I don't remember much about what he actually did or who he fought or whatever, but I do remember him enough that I wanted to include him in here. So I'll have him as cool enough. I won't put him too high because I just don't remember enough, but let's have him. We'll just drop him there for now. I always say for now because it is I'm going to change some of these. I can just see it when I drop them. All right. Princess Allura wasn't originally a Voltron person. She was in the castle as the princess. One of the guys got wounded, not quite mortally wounded, but close, and had to leave like almost immediately, I feel like, in the show. So Princess Allura had to step in, flies the Blue Lion. She's wearing pink, looking good, wearing pink, but Blue Lion. and she's pretty hardcore. She's a good fighter, not just in the lion, but she is spunky outside of it as well. So I like Princess Allura a lot. I'll have her in the awesome category with these guys as well. Let's just put her right below Keith. Professor Newtonium, Powerpuff Girls. He's the dad of the three girls. And he is a fun character, a good dad. Enjoyed Professor Newtonium. I'm going to have him in the Barely Not Awesome category with the girls. I'll put him below the girls, but pretty close. Oh man, this is a professor as well, and I can never get his name right. Professor, so Futurama. You had Fry, you had Zoidberg, you had. Mm, I'll think of it. But anyway, it's kind of a weird name from what I recall. So the professor from Futurama. He's old. He's funny. I'll have him in the Barely Not Awesome category. I think I've got some similar guys right around here. I'll have him next to Dr. Light. Professor. Why am I thinking? No, that's not the right one. I'm like, who's Nordberg? Oh well. Those always drive me nuts, but then I'll think of it 10 hours later. All right, Professor X. Professor X is in X-Men, the animated series. He comes back in X-Men 97. He leaves at the end of X-Men, but does come back. And Professor X is a really well-written, good character. He does a good job of like balancing stuff within a lot of different personalities within the X-Men. He has a cool chair. I don't know that he's my favorite, so I'm going to try to be careful about not like overdoing all of the X-Men type characters, but I'd have him as awesome. Let's just drop him right around there. He's a very good character on the show. He's just not intended to be like funny or anything else. Prowl. Prowl is in Transformers. He's like the police car. He's more serious, but can be funny at times. And I like Prowl. He was one of my favorite toys. My brother actually had the die-cast metal version of it, which, like compared to toys today, you can't even explain how much better it is. But it's like 20 pieces that once you break it, it falls apart. But anyway, Prowl was awesome. I love Prowl. Prowl reminds me of some of these other type of guys, even though he wasn't a leader. I'll have Prowl maybe down by Iron Man. He also died in the movie, which is a shame. He was probably my second biggest death. Puar. So we had Oolong, the pig, transforms. Puar does too. Puar is the best friend of Yamcha, who we haven't got to, but he's more friendly. He's a flying cat kind of deal. Just weird characters, right? But I liked Puar a little bit more than Oolong, and we'll move him up the chain just a bit, just below Hello Nurse. All right, Pumaira. Pumaira is the second group of Thundercats as well. She is good on the show. I actually like her a lot. Like in the original cartoon. In the second cartoon, she actually betrays the Thundercats, and it goes unresolved because they canceled the show. So I assume she'd have been redeemed at some point. She had good reason for what she was doing, but I like Pumaira a lot. I'll have her in the Barely Not Awesome category. Let's have her down by Dee Dee and Leader One. That's fine. Okay, Punisher. I think we'll leave it at this one. So Punisher is in Spider-Man, the animated series, which is a tough place for Punisher to be because Punisher is actually somebody who uses live weapons and kills, and in Spider-Man they don't really do that. And so you don't see him at his forefront, but he does have some cool weapons and things of like nets and trying to catch people. He has the battle van, which is fun to see. And I liked the character. He was a good addition to the show. And whoops, I think I misdropped him somewhere, which I can just find if I don't see him immediately. This is about where I'd have him anyway if it was in the cool enough category. probably toward the top. He just didn't do enough to warrant more time or more movement up the chain here. He did not have enough time. Okay, well, I'll find him later and be like, oh, that's where he fell. You all probably see it. You're like, oh, he's right there. So I think that gets us. We can go ahead. We'll do Q's. We're okay. There's only a few of them. So we've got the question. Question is in. I think he's in Justice League and maybe just Justice League. But the question has no face. It's probably a mask, right? But he asks a lot of questions, is what he does. So the question, and whoops, before we do question, I found the Punisher. He was too far down. I don't know how I got that far down. But I'd have him toward the top of cool enough. So I'm going to move him up. Maybe up Pepe Le Pew. Okay, back to question. Question is, I like Question. He's kind of a fun character to have when you have all these superpowered people with, cosmic powers and whatever. And this dude's just a great investigator and figures out what's going on. And like when other people are not understanding, he gets it. So I like his character. Wish he was in more, but that's fine. Let's have him up. Let's have him around there. Quick Draw McGraw turns into El Kabong, where he's got his guitar and he becomes a superhero. I always like Quick Draw compared to some of the other Hanna-Barbera characters. Like we had Peter Potamus down there. But I have Quick Draw up in my... he can move, but let's have him around Barney Rubble. And then this is Quicksilver. So Quicksilver is the leader of the Silverhawks. And not that we had like Captain Stargazer, he's the organizer dude, but this is like the battlefield leader, Quicksilver. And I like Quicksilver. He's a good leader, strong leader. The show wasn't, quite as good as some of the others, like where I would, put him up with these guys. So I'm going to have him more in the barely not awesome category for now, but he may move. I've got to try to remember some of his plot points and things. Okay, I think that gets us to the R's. Let's see how much more we got. There's going to be a decent amount of R's, I'm sure. So R, yeah, would take us down to like here. So we'll get started with that again. And I think maybe I'll do that with some S and maybe T, and then I'll have one more to finish it off plus ordering. So maybe a couple more. All right, we'll stop there and get started again.